It's time for a cup of coffee with Will and Chris at Slumberland Furniture. From Slumberland Furniture in Osage Beach, here are your hosts, William Holtz and Chris Schneider.
Did you miss us as much as we missed you? It's a time for a cup of coffee with Wild Will and Uncle Chris from Slumberland at the Lake. Believe it or not, 109th straight week.
Wow.
We'll be right here at
109, baby.
At the Lake. Just wrapped up with the President's Day sale. Got another sale to tell you about, but first on this week's show, we're going to look back at a huge polar plunge. You plunged this weekend?
Heck no, man. Are you kidding me? I'm not that tough. I can't do that.
Record setting. We'll tell you all about that. Plus, have you caught any of the murmurings on Facebook about some of the stuff going on in Sunrise Beach?
No.
Some concerns from some citizens. Looks like the city of Sunrise Beach is going to purchase a new building, but there's some serious concerns from citizens over lack of transparency. And with a big election coming up on April 4th, some local area residents are having their voice heard and getting involved. Might be surprised what they've discovered. We'll tell you about that. Plus, you remember there was a deceased individual found a couple weeks ago, and there were some suspicious circumstances. They're waiting for the autopsy results, and we have those results. We'll share that. Plus, you remember the end of January, the crazy fatal shooting? Was there a third member? One dead, one wounded. Well, looks like we've moved a little closer to understanding what's going on. We'll tell you about that. And high school basketball in the area. District tournaments going on. Some district tournaments in the books. We've got district champions to talk about. State tournaments going on and right around the corner. Fun time for basketball season. And of course, hard to believe that as we look at basketball season about to go to the rear view, it's St. Patty's Day, baby.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe. It's like springtime's here, and spring at the lake means 70 degrees one day, and then it's snowing the next day, right? It's crazy.
That is 100% true. Are you used to Missouri weather now that you're a year-rounder?
Well, you know what cracks me up is I've lived like 1,000 different places in my life, right? And every one of them is so proud of how fast their weather changes. Everybody says that, weather changes in 10 minutes kind of thing. Everybody says that everywhere
it's
you
like
live.
It originated there. They're known for it. Yeah, it just depends on where you're at. That's funny. So we'll tell you about all the crazy events going on. And they're spread out over 2 weekends. They start Saturday 11th, also at the big parade on the 18th. So we'll tell you about that. And if you noticed the Mizzou ball, Mizzou's going to be dancing, baby. That's right. With a chance to make a run under the direction of Dennis Gates. We'll tell you about that. But first, our friend from Slumberland at the Lake, Daryl Cunningham.
Hey everybody, Daryl Cunningham with Slumberland Furniture at the Lake. All of our sister stores up north got a ton of snow last week, so our company decided to hold President's Day sale over for another week. Come check us out where you can get 25% off all of our regularly priced items. We still have tons of discounted items in the store, and we're ready to deliver. Come see us at Slumberland Furniture, where we're bringing happy home.
All right, as we welcome you back, I'd say it would be wiser just to write a big fat check or hand over some money to the Special Olympics Missouri, but that's not what the Polar Plungers do. Annual event, it's become massive, their largest plunge in the state of Missouri, and our annual Lake of the Ozarks plunge was Saturday. We were there live. If you caught our parade of plungers on our Facebook page, got to see all the costumes. But what an event. I saw so many people out there I knew. Osage Beach Mayor Michael Harmison was a guest celebrity judge. Tom from LO Profile. Of course, George Denny. He had been there, I think this was the 24th or 28th Polar Plunge. Wow. He had been at all but one shooting video and photos of that event. And of course, this was the first time that I have ever been to the Polar Plunge. Mike Clayton wasn't there. He was under the weather. So it was weird not seeing him there behind the mic.
That was your first Polar Plunge?
Not that I had been to. That was the first one that I've been to that Mike Clayton was not the MC.
Oh, okay, right.
Because he was under the weather. Right. So he's always there. Mix 92.7, KS 95, the entire Benny conglomerate of companies is huge in that event. I saw Mariah Wilms, Osage Beach Police Chief Todd Davis is a super plunger. Chris Wagner's a super plunger. Yep. Of course, best meteorologist in the state of Missouri, KRCG Zach Paul. You probably know him and KS95's JT Geralt. They do the competitive media guy, like who can raise most money as a polar plunge. Even got a trophy, right, that they pass back and forth. And this year, JT took the trophy, second straight year, staying in Versailles, baby. $37,000. Zach, $27,000. I talked with Crystal Schuster with the Polar Plunge. She's the Senior Director of Community Development. And she said it was a record-breaking year. Total, $270,000.
Wow.
Those 24 super plungers, which what that means is the day before the event, starting 24 hours, they plunge every hour on the hour, 24 times leading into their 24th at 2:30 with the rest of the plungers. They take
24 of those people.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
And they raise funds throughout the year. $37,000 for JT Girl, $27,000 for KS95 Star, and then, like I said, $27,000 for Zach Paul. Of course, Joe and Christy Jung from Jolly Rogers. Have you been to this event before?
No, I've just watched it all on Lake TV.
So got to get you guys out there.
A little bit too chilly out there.
It's at PB2 in Jolly Rogers. Joe and Christy Jung, they've been doing this for years. They bring their Calypso, their pirate ship. Every one of their staff members, and some of these staff have been doing it for 15 plus years with them. That's how long they've been there. They all dress up like pirates. They have like 40 of them. And so it's really an amazing event. The Strutters raised $7,400. Pee-wee plungers raised over $3,000.
I'm guessing those are kids.
Yeah.
Right? Pee-wee plungers? Wow.
Yeah. Well, that are, you know. It was an incredible weekend watching so many people come together to support our athletes, Crystal said. Now, the top event sponsors, I mentioned Mix 92.7, KS95, and Cool Hits, the Benny Media team. Not only do they cover, and they're all over that, but of course, JT Girl is one of their star DJs at KS95, Country Sale. If you haven't heard him, you're missing out. And they're all over it. KRCG, Zach Paul, they're huge in support of Zach and his efforts in the event. Missouri DNR and the Osage Beach Police Department, this, of course, from Crystal Schuster. And before we move on, I wanted to say, if you're curious on why the Polar Plunge takes place, you know, it's to raise funds for Missouri Special Olympics, and what Missouri Special Olympics is there for is to provide year-round sports training and athletic competition in a variety of Olympic-type sports for children and adults with intellectual disabilities, giving them continuing opportunities to develop physical fitness, demonstrate courage, experience joy, and participate in a sharing of gifts, skills, and friendship with their families, other Special Olympic athletes, and their community. One of the coolest things that took place on Saturday is one of the Special Olympics athletes opened us up with the national anthem.
Wow.
Phenomenal, really cool. Record-setting Polar Plunge in the books. We're going to have our official recap video on Facebook this week, probably already up there by the time you watch the show, but we love this event, and I'm telling you, it was record, not just in fundraise. So many people there. It was such a good event, and I'm asking, please put the last Saturday in February on your and Mrs. Uncle Chris's calendar for next year.
Right, yeah. I know.
Not that you're plunging.
I know Mrs. Uncle Chris ain't going, but I'll get out there.
Not that you're plunging
right.
just to come watch and hang out.
I mean, I'm so impressed, though. 24 super plungers, those guys, people that do it every hour. 98 strutters. What are strutters?
So that maybe there's a walk and there's a run in the morning. There's like a 5K, the Polar Strut, and walk. And so if you, whether you walk or run or sprint the 5K, I think you're a strutter.
Okay, cool. 13 Pee-wee plungers and then 257 just regular plungers.
When I heard 13 Pee-wee plungers, I thought that meant you plunged 13 times.
No kidding, man. I'm a short guy over here plunging. Right, yeah, that could happen. There would definitely be some shrinkage. I'll tell you that much right now.
You are ridiculous. All right, so Polar Plunge in the books. What an event. And if you weren't there this year, you can check out a recap video. But do note, every Saturday, or the last Saturday of every February, that's typically when that event happens, at Public Beach 2. You only have to raise, if you want to plunge, you only have to raise like $75 or $100 total, and that'll allow you to take the plunge. Really cool event, and would love to see you out there. So, kind of wild. We're going to move ahead from great feel-good story to a little bit of digging here. So, Sunrise Beach, it's a small municipality, small city, small village, if you will, and a lot of things going on recently. Looks like, if you're not familiar with the Sunrise Beach City Hall, it sits in this little house, you know, next to the Attorney Building, and then there's a Sunrise Beach Fire Department right there, right across from Hurricane Deck School. Right. You know, real small little house, and so they need, at some point in time, a bigger building, a better building where they can hold court for civil tickets, things of that nature, pay your water bill. But apparently they have looked at buying a building, and it appears to be the old Summit Natural Gas building. And so I don't have a lot of information, but I have been bombarded with people reaching out and saying, Will, you need to look into this. And luckily we've had some locals that have been very diligent. They've sunshined the city of Sunrise Beach, and some concerns that I've seen put together here in my notes was that about 7 months into looking for a building, they settled on that building. Now, Debbie Staller, she's the chairman for the Board of Trustees, which is like the Board of Aldermen, you know, in a small municipality, that she asked Virginia Curvin, another trustee, and realtor Fran Campbell to assist Jenny Nelson in looking and developing and contracting of the 7 acres they settled on. So in January of 23, the trustees had a meeting to do a walkthrough of the building, and the next morning they wanted to look at another vacant structure that had been there for a while. So the moral of the story is it looked to happen super, super fast, and a lot of citizens are very concerned. They say, listen, not only do we want to know about you using taxpayer money to put the city in a position like this, I mean, $645,000 is what the building was listed at with a $90,000 roof allowance. And their offer was for the full $645,000. And when the concerns started coming in, all of a sudden, there was rumors that another offer's coming in, we have to push this through. And so I don't know if there's any truth to it, but I think one of the concerns, Stephanie Crable put together a list as well, is that there could be something to gain on this. What she said is there's a 3% commission going to the real estate team for selling and for buying, whoever represents which entity, and that if someone sitting on the board has a commission to gain, potentially, that's unethical or a conflict of interest. So that's the first issue that has raised some concerns by these citizens. The second one was the current state of the financial department of the city of Sunrise Beach. We're struggling to get enough deputies. We only have 3 total deputies, our police chief, 2 deputies, and then we have a 3rd deputy that works 1 weekend a month. And that's how many people we have in the Sunrise Beach Police Department. As a matter of fact, they had to have a fundraiser recently to raise $3,500 just to upgrade equipment. So there's pressing issues financially for the city.
It wouldn't seem like they could afford that if they're having to do fundraisers for $3,500.
And we'll take it a step further than that. My understanding is, I did not confirm this, but that building they're currently in, they still owe almost $50,000 in. So if they leave there, do they carry that note? It's an interesting way that it's set up because at the Village of Sunrise Beach, there's actually 2 different boards. If you're voted, and listen, I'm just learning all this. I'm going to dig more into this, give you guys better, more thorough information. But if you're elected as a trustee of the city of Sunrise Beach, you automatically get put on a separate entity, which is a nonprofit, which acts on behalf of the city to do a lot of the financial dealings. And so really, that committee or nonprofit actually owns the note for the Sunrise Beach City Hall currently, and that is who would take that on. It's very confusing. But if you look at a mortgage calculator, it looks like at $645,000 with no down payment, if you figure in interest rate, if they can get a 40-year note, you're looking at $1.2 million with a monthly payment of about $3,400. And based on the city's current operating budget, Chris, you're looking at an expense ratio of 74%. That's a dangerous place to put a city that is small, struggling to have enough deputies, and looking to find a way to grow, gain more resources, rushing through for the purchasing of a $645,000 building that's probably going to need about $300,000 in renovations and remodels. When you're in financial need now, I can understand the concerned citizens. And so we here at Lake TV don't know a lot. We know that April 4th, there's a big election. The Sunrise Beach Board of Trustees, their chairman, all of those things will be decided. There's some names on the that have thrown their name in the cap for that. I'm sitting down with local people in Sunrise Beach. I'm going to be asking questions to Jenny Nelson. I'm going to be asking questions to Debbie Staller and everyone with the city to try to find out what exactly is happening. But something's happening, and I saw enough that I sat down with a couple of people, a couple citizens from Sunrise Beach, and they helped show me some of this. And I do believe at this point in time there is concern, and we need to look into it because, Chris, City of Sunrise Beach currently doesn't have board meeting minute notes listed on their website. The sunshine law and request that was put in by a citizen cost $420, which that's law. And so the city and some volunteers and some people that wanted to help the lady out, they donated that money. And now the city is trying to get all of these documents put together. But to me, as much as we need those documents, there's so limited man hour in the city hall for Sunrise Beach. The fact that someone is now going to be spending hours to gather that stuff is also not a good thing. And so when we get that information, I'm sure it will tell a lot. But it's sad because it is a small area, and a lot of times you have to find somebody to run for a certain position for one of those seats. And sometimes they win with as few as 4, 5, and 6 votes.
It's crazy.
Within the village of Sunrise Beach, there's literally like 108 registered voters.
Yeah.
You know, I sit here as almost a full percentage of the registered voting population in Sunrise Beach. And so that's crazy. And so those 108, we need to know what's going on. And so these concerned citizens have done a good job of shedding some light. And hopefully we'll be able to get to the bottom of this and see, does there need to be change prior to the April 4th election? Or does it just mean some of us need to help out, help the people currently in office understand? Because like I said, Chris, a lot of times these people are not politicians. They don't have this knowledge. They don't have this experience. But they're asked to run for something or do something because no one else will. And if that's the case here, I say the community gets behind them, helps them out. Let's get them up to speed. But certainly, if somebody is in there for self-gain, I think it'll be figured out, and I think that the voters will speak.
Well, it kind of seems very dangerous, though, right? If they're looking at buying a building, $600,000 and, you know, $1 million with the loan and all that stuff, if they can't afford what they have right now, what makes them think they're going to be able to afford that, right? I mean, that seems to be problematic.
It's a great question, and I think that's the question that a lot of the concerned citizens are having is like, hey, anytime we make a decision of this magnitude, you know, it affects us greatly because we're the ones, our tax dollars, we're the ones that are going to be on the hook for this a year from now, 5 years, 10 years from now. And I think there's that concern of lack of transparency. Why were we not told about this? Why was the community not called in for a public meeting, for a public hearing, for an open forum, whatever it would be? And I think the citizens feel slighted. I think they feel like, hey, Sunrise Beach, you need to put this information up. We shouldn't have to sunshine. This is stuff that should be there. So just wild. We're going to continue to follow this, see what we can't figure out, because at the end of the day, it's not about throwing anybody under the bus, making anybody look bad. It's about doing what's best for the city for this year and for years to come, as well as the people that live within those city limits.
Does Sunrise Beach have a mayor or anything like that right now?
Essentially, the chairman of the board of trustees, Debbie Stoller, she is essentially the mayor.
Oh, okay.
I mean, a municipality that small, you don't have a mayor. The chairman of your board of trustees acts or serves as the mayor.
So this Debbie Stoller is in control of things right now.
Yeah, I mean, from my understanding, yes. And when you're small, you rely on a lot of help from other people,
right.
And sometimes you may not rely in the right places. But you know, I'm not willing to say who's wrong or right here. I think it's right there are concerns, and so for us, we go to the drawing board, we start asking questions and looking into things, and hopefully we can get a better understanding.
Has that building been purchased already? Is that a done deal?
It's not closed on, from my understanding. There was an offer put in, and it was a rushed offer because there was apparently, after sitting vacant for years and years, there was other offers coming in,
right.
Which we know a lot of times in the real estate market, there's gimmicks, there's gadgets, there's ways to...
Yeah, it could be sketchy, yeah.
Correct, and so definitely concerns. And we will continue to seek answers on your guys' behalf and, of course, on the Sunrise Beach citizens. All right, so a couple of additional news stories. So we had some wild ones. Remember back in January in Lake Ozark, that Friday night, crazy, we had helicopters going around, and there was one dead, one seriously injured, and potentially a third suspect on foot, right? Mm-hmm. There was all kinds of assumptions being made, and it's kind of slowed down. Nothing else has really come of that. We know that one died. We know that there is an injured individual, Devin Atkinson, it looks like. Dylan Atkinson, rather. And so still nothing. Now, when I talked to Lieutenant Michael O'Day about 2 weeks ago, he had told me that they were conducting interviews and that Devin Atkinson was not really recovered or in a position to field an interview and be of much help. So there's been nothing since that, so I reached out to Lieutenant O'Day and I said, I just wanted to follow up on the injured subject, Devin Atkinson. When we last spoke, he was not in a position to be interviewed, but you were hoping that was about to change maybe even that day. And since that time, Chris, I have heard from the rumor mill that Atkinson's refusing to talk. And so I asked Lieutenant O'Day, can you allude to any truth behind that? I said, also, what's the latest as far as informing the public? Is there anything to tell? I said, because I don't want to create my own narrative, but if I were a betting man, I'd say it sounds like there could be some suspicious activity, gang-related. Is it suspected that Atkinson could be involved or perhaps even a suspect in the fatal shooting? And can you at least confirm that he isn't cooperating at this time? Lieutenant O'Day replied and said, now we don't have any more information from the last time we spoke. We've conducted more interviews, but there's nothing more to tell that would help us figure out what happened that night. He did confirm that Devin has an attorney who they've been in contact with, and so that leads me to believe, why would you need an attorney? I mean, if you got shot and you didn't do anything, you really don't need an attorney. Well, maybe you do need an attorney, and so you could draw your own conclusion here that says, well, he might have something to hide, and that might be why he has a legal team. And Lieutenant O'Day did say, now, I'm not sure about gang activity, maybe some other activities besides that. And he goes, yes, the short answer would be lack of cooperation from all involved. And so at this point, don't really have a whole lot more to give you except for if he's hired a lawyer, he's lawyered up, he's not talking. I mean, there may not have been a third suspect. And so who knows what's going on there? We'll continue to ask questions. And not the only bizarre story we've had recently. Just last week, we talked about 82-year-old man, or 62-year-old Thomas Gifford, found dead in Camdenton. Now, they sent off for the autopsy because the circumstances surrounding his death seem suspicious.
Yeah.
They said one of the deputies said, in 19 years of my line of work, I've never seen these circumstances and it not been a homicide. So the preliminary autopsy results are in. Of course, it's into the death of Thomas Gifford of Camdenton. Pathologists from Southwest Forensics in Ozarks, Missouri, conducted an autopsy earlier this week, and the preliminary findings from that indicate the manner of death is in fact a homicide.
Right.
The investigation into the cause of death remains ongoing. Detectives from Camden County Sheriff's Office are coordinating with numerous law enforcement agencies in Missouri to investigate and hopefully bring this case to a close. But unfortunate, wild,
Yeah, I mean, we've got these two cases, shootings and murders. I mean, the cause of death is very suspicious, and, they do the autopsy and they say, yep, this is definitely a homicide, but still no answers. No, this is what happened. It's kind of crazy in these two cases how little they know, and they're finding out. Nothing seems to be happening. I don't know if that's normal or not normal, but it doesn't seem right.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem right that what were the circumstances that led you to be suspicious?
Yeah.
Some of that information I'm sure people would love to have, but also at this stage in the investigation, maybe it's not real cumbersome to share that, or maybe
Yeah, and we're so instant gratification. We're used to watching a TV show and you see the murder, the investigation, and the trial all wrapped up in 60 minutes, and stuff like that. So we expect to know.
And I feel like I'm a lawyer, a detective, a forensic specialist,
right.
a judge, a defense attorney.
And it's probably not that simple. There's more to it than that. And yet you still would hope to find and have some answers, starting to roll in.
I actually believe that those shows like Law & Order SVU and Crime CSI and all those have probably done law enforcement and the professionals no help as far as
probably
all
true.
of us kind of feel like we're experts.
Yeah.
If you've seen a couple court cases, you know the deal.
Well, and there's really no Columbo out there, right? Because police do not have the time anymore to put a Columbo on the case for 2 months to go around, lollygagging around to figure out who did the murder. That just doesn't happen anymore, right? I mean, they're too busy for that. So again, TV's probably done that an injustice. Yeah,
for sure. All right, so Lake Area high school basketball teams. Some teams' seasons have come to a close. Gotta say, the Camden boys, you see they won 2 big games to end their year?
I did see that. That was greatness. Yeah, a win over Waynesville and a win over California. Finished 13-13, which is great for the Lakers in recent years.
Yeah, especially considering how many games they had lost in a row. Started 9-0, I believe, and then lost a slew of games. So they're going to be starting their district tournament Thursday night, as were the Camdenton girls. For the Osage boys, they got upset Monday in their district opener.
I saw that, at Eldon. Yeah.
They beat them good, too, by like 13 points. So their season comes to a close at 11-15. As for the girls, they actually played Tuesday night. We didn't know the results by the time we recorded, but Eldon and Osage girls and boys in the district's kind of fun. We'll keep you updated on that. Versailles, they're going to get the Eldon boys Wednesday night, already probably happened. At Eldon, they're hosting that district tournament. Winner goes to the district championship Friday night. As for the girls, Versailles, they beat Hallsville last Thursday by 6 on the road to get to 15 wins, which they haven't done in I don't know how many years. They have the district tournament Tuesday night as well. Tipton, I just had to throw Tipton in here. Now, the boys, they lost in the district tourney to Sacred Heart by 10. The girls are 27-1. Did you see the scores of their district tournament, Chris?
Yeah, it was like 90-26 or something like that. Well, and Iberia is another local team that won their district championship. I think the Iberia girls go into the sectional finals. The Max Creek girls won their district championship. So a lot of good local basketball. 16
games in a row, Ron Dugan's girls have won, and they were down in the third quarter in the district championship game. They ended up pulling away. Brooklyn Dugan, she went 8 of 10 from the charity stripe in the fourth quarter, which was ultimately what helped her team win. She had a game-high 11 in that, and they're going to play in the sectionals against Golden City Tuesday night. So that game already happened when you get to see this. Hopefully they're moving on to the quarterfinals. But what a year they've had. The boys lost in the district championship to Hermitage, and boy, 49-47, heartbreaking loss. As far as California girls, they get the winner of Boonville and Knob Noster Thursday. So a lot of great basketball going along around the Lake area. And you're hoping a couple of these teams maybe get further because you're going to the state tournament, aren't you?
Yeah, every year I try to go to the state basketball tournament because I just love that, right? And we've got some local teams that could be there this year.
We used to do that together.
I know, but you've gotten too busy. He's too big and important now.
Well, I've got the daughter, my daughter Brindley at home to leave on a weekend.
You got Brindley and Andy and Unique at home.
All three of my girls at home I have to take care of. Oh, man. Andy's over there chuckling. That's beautiful. So, really love this season, and we don't get to talk about hockey a ton, but it was basketball season. It wraps up. It goes into playoffs. Hockey's winding down the home stretch, so it's a good time for sports. And as you get into basketball season, playoffs like the March Madness,
that's coming up.
Think of St. Patrick's Day.
Yep.
And boy, next Saturday, the 11th, what a day it's going to be, starting with the Water Parade, 32nd annual St. Patrick's Water Parade. Ship to shore. You can jump on the celebration cruises. Optional breakfast at Ron's at 8, National Anthem at 9:30, and Blessing of the Fleet right after. They board the boats at 9:45, and then you have a blast. Parade ports are Bear Bottom, the Fish & Co., Captain Ron's, Naughty Fish, Rum Bar. Prize for best costume, decorated boat, and then go home, take a nap, sober up, and then get ready for that night because it's the 13th annual St. Pat's Day pub crawl.
Wow.
And $10 wristbands required. That gets you on the buses to all the locations. A lot of locations this year, and that has become one of the cooler events of the year on the west side.
Because we got Bear Bottoms, Branding Irons, Captain Ron's, Chances Are, Frankie Louie's, Naughty Fish, Rocky Top Bar, Stogie's, the Glory Hole, West Side Pub, Whiskey Dick's, Woods on Highway 5. I mean, it's greatness. And both of these are from the Lake West Chamber, right?
Yeah,
they're kind of running
great events.
Yeah.
So that'll be great. Then the next weekend, it's going to be the St. Patrick's Day Parade on the Bagnell Dam Strip. We'll have that live for you on all Lake TV platforms at 1 o'clock. And then, of course, Real Deal Fishing Guides Spoonbill Snagging Tournament Saturday, that same day at Wigwam Fishing Access. And then the Lake West Business Expo. Saturday, March 25th at Lake Christian Academy in Sunrise Beach. As far as who's on Lake TV, Sandy Wagon on the Spotlight Show. By the way, loved Brian McKenzie from the FCA.
He was great.
Awesome.
Yep.
Watch that. Don't forget Weekend at the Lake coming back next week. You don't want to miss that. As for Uncle Chris, I'm Wild Will. Until next week, God bless and be safe.